Hi Crafty Friends, Bonnie here. Today's project looks at combining a fun inking technique, color blocking, and hot foiling. This Valentine's duel will feature Affluent Heart and Eccentric Hearts hot foil plates. Because both the techniques and a lot of the products used between the card and the tag are the same, this tutorial will focus mainly on the tag, but I will touch on the background for the card. In addition to the hot foil plates, I'll also be working with the Wholeheartedly cover die and Love Slimline tag. I'm starting off by using the tag die as a guide to trim down my pink cardstock. The hot foil plate set, Affluent Heart, comes with 3 outlines of the heart and a solid heart, as well as the sentiment, love you. I'm taping together the 2 largest consecutive outlines and the solid heart inside the smallest outline heart. Although I'm not ready to hot foil yet, I do need to use these as a guide for placement so that I can start inking my background. Color blocking is a fun and easy technique that adds a lot of interest to a background. I'm using low-tack tape and I'll be marking off some sections to start adding color to this panel. The color blocking will be a gradient from the soft pink of the cardstock right up to a bright red. I'll be working with positively saturated inks, cherry, watermelon, and guava. Of course, the cardstock is my lightest color, but using a blending tool, I'll put on my second lightest color, which is guava. I'm using fairly good pressure as I apply the ink. I want the coloration in each of the sections to be very consistent. And now that I'm finished applying the guava, I can remove my tape and get ready to apply my next darkest ink, which is watermelon. So here's the thing, sometimes I am patient and other times I'm not. And when I'm excited about doing something like color blocking, I do not exercise the time that I need to let the ink dry before I move on. So the tape that is going across those inked areas on the panel is not sticking. And what I'm doing is taking other pieces of tape where it runs off onto my work surface and adding that in to hold everything in place. I know, really? In addition to that, any of those sections of tape that was lifting, I also made sure that I used my fingers to hold it down flat as I started applying ink. And of course, the fun part is removing the tape, which in my case is extremely easy. That tape is practically falling off. The tape that I was using is pretty well inked up, and I want to start fresh because I don't want any of that ink leaving marks on the panel. And with all the tape in place, I'm ready to add in my final color, cherry. This is a nice bright cherry red, as the name suggests. And before I go any further, I am now going to set my panel aside and let it dry for, maybe 15-20 minutes before I continue. And while it's drying, I'll go ahead and heat up my Glimmer hot foil system and trim down my gold foil to the size of the hearts that have been taped together. Because I want the hearts in a particular position on my small panel, I'm going to layer everything together off of the hot glimmer machine. So everything is going to be layered on opposite to what it would be if I was working directly on the machine. And sometimes I cannot wrap my head around that. I have foiled many plates doing this, but not this time. When I'm finished, you'll notice that there are a few areas that are underfoiled. I kind of wish that I had done just one heart at a time. However, I thought this was a good opportunity to show you that when this happens, there are some steps that you can take to correct it. I've got all of my bits and pieces of tape holding everything in position, so now I can flip my panel over and pop it onto my hot foil glimmer machine. And I've hit the timer button and you can see there's a light flashing, and I'll leave it until that light goes solid. In addition to the plate and the shim, I'll also include a sheet of copy paper which has been divided in half before running it through the die cutter. And you can see there are a couple of areas on the hearts where they're a little bit spotty. So I'm just going to go ahead, line up the hearts. This time I'll do it one at a time like I should have the first time. Tape it so that it creates a hinge onto the tag and slip the foil underneath. And so that the plate does not slip out of alignment, I'll pop a little bit of tape on the other side and then flip it upside down onto my hot foil machine and refoil it. I repeated the process for the pair of larger outline hearts. Now to add spatter to the tag. I want to avoid getting anything on the sentiment, so I first cover that up with a little bit of Post-it note tape. I want a nice bright white spatter that will not react with the water-based ink that's on the tag, so I'm using P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. It is a thick medium, so I do water it down slightly, and I'm applying it with my smallest paintbrush. The smaller the paintbrush, the finer the spatter. The spatter takes a few minutes to dry, and then I can use the tag die from Love Slimline Tag and cut my panel. To create a nice, clean, and smooth writing surface on the back of the tag, I've cut it again in pink cardstock and adhered it to the back. The little hearts from the cover die wholeheartedly are the perfect size for embellishments. I cut the hearts from about half of the cover dies so I could use them for both the tag and the card out of pink cardstock and also white sheet foam. After I've got my hearts laid out, then I'm just picking them up, adhering them to the little foam die cuts and placing them back into position onto the tag. The foam backing really makes these little hearts pop off of that tag and add a nice amount of dimension. When everything is laid out, then I can just go ahead and add a little bit of adhesive underneath each of those hearts. For the tie, I'm using gold metallic embroidery floss, which I've looped through the hole. To keep the tie nice and stable, I'll finish it off with a little heart on top of the knot. This heart does not have the foam backing. I'll use my reverse tweezers to hold it in place until the glue is dry. I'm using the ball tool on Crafty Meraki's Bling Buddy to separate the strands of thread. And for Valentine's, can you ever have enough sparkle and shine? I'm adding Nuvo Glitter Drops White Blizzard to each of the embellishment hearts. Right now it looks a little bit cloudy, but when it dries it will be clear and super sparkly. This medium can take a while to dry, so I just leave it overnight. To each grouping of hearts, I'll add in some pink confetti, which I'm going to top up with Nuvo Crystal Drops Morning Dew. Morning Dew, like the White Blizzard, dries clear, giving the confetti a jewel-like appearance. That completes the tag. The card has been done exactly the same way, with a couple of exceptions. I've used the Eccentric Hearts hot foil plate for the background and the large die-cut sentiments from Love Slimline Tag. I'll just focus on the background and how those ink stripes are aligned to the hot foil columns. This hot foil plate has raised edging around the perimeter. Pink cardstock was cut so that it would fit exactly within that. This A2 size panel was run through the die cutter, creating a series of impressions. I can use the impressions to guide my placement of my masking tape for the color blocking. Like the tag, I'll continue to work with positively saturated inks, cherry, watermelon, and guava. The stripes will follow a gradient pattern from lightest to darkest. I start off with my first stripe, which is the light pink cardstock, and then continue with the guava. I have 4 colors and I've counted off my stripes, and I know that the last stripe on this panel is going to be guava again. So I've just moved down my low tack tape and I'll finish this last one off. I'm only going to have 1 stripe each of the other 2 colors, and I can go back up to that first one that I did and line up the low tack tape right along the edge of it. And then a second piece of the low tack tape will mask off this column of hearts. Because the ink is not dry, that top piece of tape is not completely secure, so I am being careful as I apply my second color, watermelon, to this column. So this time I'm going to take my heat tool and I'm going to apply it to that last ink stripe before I proceed to my last inked column. And again, the tape is lined up right along the ink's edge. In fact, I showed just a little bit of that ink so that none of the soft pink will peek through. After the other side of the column is masked off, then I can go ahead and add in my last color, which is cherry. And there we go, the fun stripe background is aligned to the columns of hearts, and now it's time to foil them. You could foil first and then apply the ink, but I find when removing the ink residue from the foil, it can diminish the shine. Because the panel was cut to the exact same size as the foiling plate, it is slipped into place with some low tack tape hinging it at the top. The gold foil, shiny side down, is slipped in between the cardstock and the plate. And yes, I have foiled my plates a few times. Mentioned earlier, the card is finished off following the same steps as the tag, with the exception of the foam back sentiment, which is from the Love Slimline tag die set. And that completes this fun project, foiling on a color-blocked background. And with Valentine's Day right around the corner, of course it had to be love-themed. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, we appreciate your visit.